Kaptain and incumbent Mayor Ed Schock. Ed, Dave has addressed his feelings on the form of government which he feels is best for Elgin. I think you need a chance to respond.
Couple points. One, I still haven't heard Dave say how he feels about the form of government. If you want to be the political leader of the community, you got to take a position. You got to say, I think this is the best form of government. All of us know that the form of government is decided by the constituents we serve. If we're going to change it, it'll be on a ballot and there'll be a vote. But I think if you want to lead the community, you got to say where you stand. And I made my position on that really clear. I favor the current system of government. If the current system, the biggest knock on at-large is it makes it hard sometimes for minorities to get elected. But we've had a great record on it. The longest-serving councilman in Elgin history is an African-American. At one time, we had 2 African-Americans and an Hispanic on the council. So I don't think access to the council because of race is an issue. I'm opposed to the ward system because I look at a recent quote in one of the local newspapers on the St. Charles election. There was a person running for the council, an alderman, and he's in the ward where the new proposed Red Gate Bridge would go. And they said, how do you feel about the Red Gate Bridge? And he said, well, as an individual, as a resident of St. Charles, I favor the bridge. But if my ward is opposed to the bridge, I'll be opposed to it. And he said, because I think my first obligations to my ward and my second obligations to my city. And I think that's entirely backward. I think our first obligations to our city, not our ward. The other issue about the wards that I'd like to raise is what they did in Naperville. Our Corporation Counsel, Bill Cogby's advises, don't follow that model because it doesn't conform with the Illinois statutes. And it's being challenged. The statute calls in a blended system for 5 wards and 3 at large when you have a 9-member council. Those 5 wards, the notion that this is going to provide neighborhood representation, let's look at it. Elgin's 110,000 people. If we divide that into 5 wards, that means each ward's going to have 22,000 people. That's Geneva. Geneva in the last census is 22,000 people. It's 5 Genevas. This is not going to be a neighborhood organization. And the other issue that comes up with wards is who draws the boundaries? Well, it's going to be either the city council or the city council is going to appoint some body to try to draw these 5 Genevas. So for all of those reasons, I'm very forthright about it. If it would go on a ballot, I would urge the citizens to reject the ward system and stick with the at-large system because it's the best form of government.
Dave, one of the things that you mentioned early in this discussion was that you're very inclusive with the community, that you are a part of the community, and that you would believe strongly in participation in government. And you have raised the issue of transparency and the very pointed notion that this is not always as open a government as it could be. Can we discuss that just a little bit?
Sure. I think that since I've been on the council, when I first was elected in 2005, Brenda Rogers was a council person. And for almost 2 years, I was the only council member that talked to her. And she had been excluded from participating in the council process. Recently, I shared concerns with Councilperson Dunn, and he was beginning to feel excluded himself, and that's bothersome to me. I think it's a 7-person body. I can say that since I've been on the council, Ed's called me 2 or 3 times to talk about an issue. And one of the mantras that's been taught to us as we come on the council, you need to learn to count to 4. And I think some people, that's their goal. And I think we need to go a little bit deeper than that. I would hope that we would have more conversations. And the conversations can take place in public at the committee of the whole. They don't necessarily have to be done individually. And it does make it difficult. You can't, because of Open Meetings Acts, you can't have 3-way conversations or even share emails. It has to be on a single basis. So there has to be a mechanism that we can do this, and I think the public is clamoring for it. I hear it all the time that we would like to hear more about what's going on and how you guys make your decisions. Mike, it's always been my policy. Whenever I make a vote that I know is controversial, I explain my vote. And I think that's my way of communicating back to the public. You raised the issue with Ed about Wednesday night's meeting, and it did get a little bit heated, and it's just part of the process. It's part of a good discussion. Councilman Prigge brought up that he had received a fax that had placed contract limits on wages or rents, square footages, and these had been dated back in February before the meeting. And when I specifically asked the city manager, when did he become involved? So the city manager had been excluded from the process, and I think that is something that I try not to do as best I can. I've been involved with, certainly we run into people on the street or at a meeting and they bring something up or something's initiated, but I try to get the manager involved. When it was brought up at the council meeting about Councilman Stefan and I working on something with the senior services as well, it was a very open process. We had people from the Hemmons. We were working on an event so that seniors could come to lunch and go to a concert. We had Dale Lanis from the symphony there. Sean Stiegel came in and talked and was at the meeting. So it was a pretty inclusive bunch. We had about 14 people involved in it. And it was not something to create a contract or to do something that would cause an expenditure of city funds. It was to put on an event. And I think that the issue of how this the backdoor deals, and this is something that's going in the public and around the community, I think is something that needs to be addressed. It's not healthy for our community to have that issue out there. We need to expose it. And if you don't mind, I'll go back to some notes that I brought, because I'm going to quote Councilman Sandor, and I don't want to do it and have him get after me. This came out in July 2004, and it refers to something that was done with the Futterman lawyers when the mayor was involved. And Councilman Sandor said, I'm wondering if we've gotten to be a Middle Eastern dictatorship where certain individuals have the deals done and then bring the details to us. I believe the way this was handled showed a lack of respect for the entire council and the belief of certain council members that their will is above others. You know, that's a pretty damning statement, and I think that kind of thing is damaging to the community. That's why I believe in openness, and I don't have anything to hide from anybody. I don't get any money from any of this stuff, and I would just as soon we talk about all of things. I would like to see the council meetings go another hour longer so we can have a good, solid discussion, and with the 7 of us sitting around at the committee of the whole. I personally do not believe that Ed Schock goes out and orchestrates financial deals on behalf of the city. I think that what happens is that we get to the point where there are 4 votes and they don't care about anybody else. And I think that they, you know, when you start to bring numbers back that have not included the staff, those are things that start to get concerning to me. And if that's happening, then that becomes something that we would have to look into.
Well, if Dave doesn't think there are backroom deals, why does he keep saying there are backroom deals? I mean, language is important, and the words you choose are important. You know, he's used the term backroom deals at a number of forums and most recently at the city council. And so if he doesn't think there's backroom deals, then he needs to come up with more precise language. The reference to the memo that was shared, I think it's interesting that backroom deal, but everybody has a copy of the memo breaking down the cost to rent the new space at for the senior services. That was a memo from the manager, to the senior services, detailing what the square foot cost would be and included utilities and all that they gave to myself and Mike Warren, and that we shared with the staff immediately, that day. Shared with the staff and said, could we come up with this amount of money for a 3-year period to get the senior services started? So no secrecy, no lack of transparency, no backroom deals. This was a memo from the owner to the senior services that they shared with us, and then we immediately shared with the staff. So it is what it is.
Dave, last question. Ed has said in his rebuttal that you have, as we sit here now, have still not said what form of government that you favor. I believe I heard you say you could work with either one, but do you have a preference? I mean, what do you think is best for the city of Elgin as you sit here now?
I feel that a mixed ward system would have some benefits for this community. The city of Elgin is a home rule community, and my understanding is we can determine how many wards we want to have. And they would be laid out. We would hire a consultant to come in. They have to be done based on population, not geographics. and I don't think a committee would be capable of doing that. Other communities have gone through this process, and it's worked out fairly well for them. And I think that, again, I'll restate my opinion. I would be willing to listen to whatever the people would want to do. But right now, I think that there are some benefits for a mixed ward system that are very much worth exploring.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in. This was a very spirited, open, and a very honest discussion. It's, in my opinion, each of you have a solid 40% of the vote, and it's that 20% in the middle that maybe has not made up their mind yet. I hope this helped people do that. I think Elgin would be very well served with either one of you as mayor. Thank you very much for coming in.